Alright, in this next tutorial, we're going to be doing fades, and like I said earlier, we're going to be using the Smart tool for this one. So, how you navigate to the Smart tool, as you can probably guess, you can just hit escape until all your tools are selected, and it looks like this. Another way is to, say you're just on one of them, you can just hit this top border that's kind of surrounding your three main tools, and that selects the Smart tool. And while this Smart tool can be helpful at times because you don't have to keep clicking or keep hitting escape, it can also be quite confusing. That's because now you have all the tools available. So depending on where you click, it can activate any one of these tools. So you just have to be a little careful. You might just end up doing something you don't want to do, or you might find it annoying. You're like, oh my god, I'm trying to grab this clip, but I can't. Really, like, you just have to go down a little and you're grabbing it. So it's both helpful and can be a little more complicated, complicate your workflow and make things confusing. It totally depends on what your preference is and whether or not you want to use it. For the sake of this tutorial, I will be using the Smart tool, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So back to fades. The easiest way to kind of explain a fade and why we might want to use it is to think about a movie fading in for the first scene and out for the last scene. Just like the picture fading from and into black, we want the sound to have a smooth transition in and out as well, following that visual. So to create a fade when using the Smart tool, just navigate to the top corner of any clip. I'm just going to zoom in onto this clip here, hitting T. And I want to go from to the beginning of my session, so hitting return. And you'll see that if you just hover over the top corner of the clip, you'll see this icon over here. And that is the fade icon. So click and drag. And that is how you create a fade. I'm going to hit tab. Tab again, tab again. So I'm at the end of my session right here. End of my clip right here. Same thing. Top corner and click and drag, and that is how you create a fade. So these are your classic fade in, fade out. If you want to take a listen, it smoothly fades out. Say your clip ended here. I'm just hitting S, and you take a listen to that. It just drops out. We want to create that fade, and I'm just going to solo this track so we're only listening to the one that we're editing. So I'm just going to hit Shift S to solo. And you'll notice we created a nice fade out. All right. Let's move on to audio clip 2. We're going to create fades using quick keys this time. So I'm just going to click on audio track 2 and hit Shift S. Make this track bigger for all of us to see. Hit return, so I'm at the beginning of my session. I'm going to zoom in again just so I can see. All right, so let's say I want my fade in to span from the beginning of my clip here to maybe like around here. So I'm just going to click where I want the fade to end, and I'm going to hit D. Perfect. And that is how I created the fade from the beginning to where I clicked. Super, super simple, super fast. That's how you create a fade in. You can do the same thing with a fade out. I'm just going to hit G. And I created my fade out as well. Another way to create a fade is, we'll do it for this one. If you just select your track here and then hit Shift S. We'll also make this one bigger as well to easier to see. For this one, we're going to be even more specific with the type of fade that we're creating. So the way you can do this is if you select the exact region that you want, click and drag. So just select the exact region you want the fade to cover and hit Command or Control if you're on PC, F. And then you'll see over here that this pop-up window appears, and it's just the fade window. It will probably look like this for you on standard, and what you're going to do is just select the fade that you want. So this is the standard fade that we've been doing. Just hit OK or return, and you've created the fade. I'm just going to just select here and hit tab. That brings me to the end of my session, of course, and then I'm just going to select maybe like this region, hitting Command F. And let's this time look through the types of fades that we can do. So you can do all of these types of fades, as you can see. The standard is this one. If you want a fade to be slower out a little bit, more like almost like slower and then kind of quickly fades out at the end here, you can do this one. A little bit slower than that. Your standard, just linear fade. This is a pretty quick fade. And this is almost a complete audio dropout really quickly, smoothly, so you don't have any like clicks or pops. So I would look through them and just take a listen to all of them to see the difference. Another way you can create a fade too, instead of hitting Command F, say you have this as your standard fade set up. If you just make that selection and you hit F, you'll just quickly make a fade. You do not need to hit Command F. Command F is more if you want to be specific with your fade and you want to choose a specific fade. If you just want to create any fade, you can just make a selection, hit F, and it'll just make a fade over there in that selection. You'll notice that if you hover over your fade, just where your fade lines are kind of, then you'll be able to see the fade icon that you had when you're creating fades manually. If you click and drag when you have this fade icon up here, you can actually adjust the type of fade that you have here without hitting Command F. And this can make it a little bit more specific to the way you want it. So like, say I want a really quick fade out. So I've just dragged it all the way down there. You know, you can be a little bit more specific this way instead of selecting a standard fade setting here. All right, so now that we've done fades ins and outs, we're just gonna go back to this clip over here because we took out that dog, remember? So I hit return to go back to the beginning of my session there, and I'm just gonna navigate to this cross section over here. Another easy way you can do that is just make a selection and then hit T, and it just goes to where you are here. Or you can also, say you're like zoomed out, make a selection and hit Option F or Alt F. And it just zooms into that exact selection spot. So that is a very handy tool, Option F or Alt F. I just want to zoom out a tad, so I'm gonna hit R. And now we can create crossfades this way. Similarly, if you hover with the Smart tool to the bottom of the cross section, you can click and drag and you'll create a crossfade. If you do the big top corners, you're creating the fades ins and outs. You cannot create a crossfade from the top. If you want to create a crossfade, it has to be from the bottom. That's one way to create a crossfade. Other ways to create a crossfade, you can make a selection here and hit F. It automatically creates a crossfade. Your crossfade will probably look a little bit something more like this. This is the default standard crossfade when you first use Pro Tools. Mine looks like this because that is the setting that I have made. But let's just do this because this is the standard one. All right, as you can probably guess, another way, instead of just hitting F, is hitting Command F. And for a crossfade, you notice there are three options instead of just the slope and or the in or the out. You have both the in, the out shape, and the slope. So the out shape is this blue line here, and the in shape is this red line here. And the slope equal power looks like this, equal gain and none. Yeah, my favorite is equal power, so let's do that. When you select equal power, you'll notice that it changes to this. You can edit your fade depending on what your need is for your picture, but for the sake of this one, we're gonna do a standard in shape, and we're gonna do this second one here for your out shape. So it'll look a little like this. What this means is, as this next clip here fades in linearly, this one will play a little bit longer or louder at a higher level before it fades out. I find that this fade is one of the smoother fades or clean fades. So I'm just gonna hit OK, and that created. All right, so let's create another fade here using your preferred method. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to make a selection. I'm gonna hit F. All right, so using the Smart tool, let's go through all of this again to get rid of a sound that we maybe don't like in this ambience. I'm just gonna listen to this track up the top, so I'm gonna select it and hit Shift S to solo. Just listen. Okay, so I think that entire sequence is just a tad too distracting for an ambience, a BG. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select it, hit B, delete it, select this region here. Well, how I did that was I used the grabber tool, select, shift, click, that selects everything, drag it, overlap a tad, zoom in using T. I'm going to create a crossfade right here, and this time I'll use this tool right here. And just take a listen to the fade and see if it sounds natural. Perfect. I could barely tell that I made a cut. Alright, so in the next tutorial, we will be editing all of our ambiences together to make them loop. In some cases, you want an ambience that is able to have a perfect loop, and that is what we're going to be doing in our next tutorial. Alright, so we'll see you in the next one.